The most competitive position battle so far in White Sox spring training has not been for a starting job, but for a bench role. Hello, I'm Todd Welter. Welcome to Locked On White Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm a lifelong Sox fan, been podcasting here for the past 2 seasons and covering the team well before then. And also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And on today's Extra Sox episode, I'm going to go over how Tanner Murray and Curtis Mead has made the race for the utility infielder spot the most interesting position battle in spring training so far. Then let's discuss a former White Sox player hitting well early in spring training, but I wouldn't worry about him making the White Sox regret. Moving on. So I never thought the battle for the bench spots would actually be the most competitive battle of spring training, but here we are. And I've talked about Korey Lee making a case to be carried on as a third catcher, but you also got Tanner Murray making his early plea to break camp with the club in a backup role. And Curtis Mead, he is starting to remind us that maybe he can live up to his former top 100 prospect status. Because Murray and Mead both went yard in the Sox versus Dodgers spring training game. And as I discussed a few bonus shows ago, the team seems to be willing to give Mead a shot to showcase himself before he departs for Japan to be on Team Australia in the World Baseball Classic. And he did a nice job of leaving a good impression if that was his final Cactus League game until he returns from the WBC, as he goes to the WBC, leaving with a 308, 308, 538 slash line. You know, small sample size, but maybe enough to have the front office intrigued to keep tabs on him in the WBC. I mean, I'm sure they are going to watch him, but it might be more of like, if he has a hit, be like, oh, nice job, Curtis, because, you know, again, I just don't know how he's going to fit on this roster because he's kind of redundant. But maybe if he hits well for Team Australia and is back by mid-March, because I don't think the Aussies are going to be winning the thing or going to the semifinals, may go to the quarterfinals like they did in 2023. But if he's back by mid-March, rejoins the team and continues to produce, maybe the club considers trading Lenyn Sosa. Keyword maybe, because again, Mead is just kind of redundant on this roster right now. Because you got Sosa, who's already shown he can actually hit for power in the big leagues. He can be a backup first baseman on the days you want to rest Munetaka Murakami. You just got to hope Sosa can actually locate the bag. And he can be your kind of backup DH or kind of split it with Edgar Caro and provide, you know, it's not ideal to have your DH hit 22 home runs. You kind of want a guy, he's going to be your DH hitting 30, 35 home runs ideally, but you could still get some power out of Lenyn Sosa. You don't know if you can get any power with Curtis Mead there. And if they keep Luisangel Acuña in a reserve role, you can kick over Colson Montgomery to play third on days Miguel Vargas needs a breather. Or maybe you have Miguel Vargas as the backup to Murakami at first base. But they do need guys who can hit, even if it's in a pitch hit role. And maybe Mead might be the right guy to have come in late in games to get a critical hit. Although if Murray keeps hitting at a 300 pace, the front office might want to consider adding him to the roster instead, because he's able to play second, short, and third. And I believe he can play some outfield too, if I remember my episodes that I did when he got acquired in that trade that also got the White Sox Everson Pereira. Now, when it comes to the roster locks, here is how I have it. And I've got it up for those watching on YouTube. I mean, basically, you got the infield. I would be stunned if it was anything different. You got Munetaka Murakami at first, Chase Meidroth at second, Colson Montgomery at short, Miguel Vargas at third. Outfield, it's going to be, sadly, Andrew Benintendi. Then you're going to have probably Brooks Baldwin at center and Austin Hayes in right. Catcher Kyle Teal. Edgar Caro is going to be basically the starting DH, as manager Will Venable said that's probably where he's going to get most of his at-bats, and it seems like that's where he's been hitting so far early in spring training. Then I have Shane Smith, Anthony Kay, Davis Martin, and Sean Burke in the rotation. I mean, I think Sean Burke is pretty much, I would be stunned if he, tumbles out of the rotation, but, the command issues, but still, had a nice outing recently, so it's still early, but I would say he's probably going to be in. Bullpen, you got Sir Anthony Dominguez, Grant Taylor, Mike Vassell, Jordan Leisure, Jordan Hicks, Sean Newcomb. Bench rolls, I got Lenyn Sosa and Luisangel Acuña. That's what you got. And then really it's, I got a question mark for the fifth starter, but, it's really 4 spots up for grabs. I would say 2 in the bullpen because they have not given Jetson Paez, the Rule 5 pick, a shot so far. He hasn't gotten in. I mean, maybe he's still ramping up because he did get into camp a little late because of visa issues and that type of stuff. Alexander Alberto, they might still give him a shot just because his stuff, he's given glimpses of some potential, but his command is really off to the point where do you really trust him to even pitch in low leverage, like when the White Sox are up 5 or down 5, because he might walk a whole bunch of guys and really blow that. But Eric Fetty, he's making the roster. I mean, they're not going to pay him $1.5 million to do nothing this season. This team doesn't believe in sunk costs, and I still think he is the leader in the clubhouse for the fifth starter, even though he hasn't thrown yet. But still, maybe someone else in the rotation battle impresses, and that forces him into a long relief role. Either way, we won't know about the pitching for a few more weeks as guys are still ramping up. I mean, you're still at the point where, guys are, starters are throwing no more than 30 pitches. And then the next start, maybe they're up to throwing 40 pitches, that type of stuff. I mean, right now it's true pitch count and just getting themselves built up more. But the backup spots, if Lee takes a spot because he earns it, then the early favorites right now to get the last spot, I would say, is Mead, Murray, or Derek Hill, who had a nice defensive play today and could be that late inning defensive replacement this team might need in the outfield. However, if Acuña is in a utility role or somewhat super utility role where he kind of is starting some days in the outfield and, maybe they're trying to get him rotated in to sort of be somewhat of a starter, somewhat utility, that leaves the door open for some of the outfielders still in the running because you can have Luisangel Acuña. He also can play third, short, and second. But Everson Pereira, he needs to get on the field soon. He needs to recover from that injured side that's been sidelining him. Jared Kelenic might want to start showing the team that he's worthy of being carried as that left-handed bat off the bench. Might want to start doing that soon. Tristan Peters, he's had some early moments, so I put him in as a dark horse for that final spot. Sam Matanacci, they want to get him regular at bats, so I see AAA in his future. Well, Eloy Jimenez is having a good start to spring training for the Blue Jays, and if he makes it back with Toronto, well, I'll discuss after the break why it should not make White Sox fans cringe, and that's coming up next. MLB opening day is almost here, and you can feel it. Fresh starts, big expectations, and that first crack of the bat. Whether it's a breakout rookie or a division race that goes down to the wire, there's nothing like being in the ballpark for it. The only problem? Getting tickets can feel like a grind. Long queues, surprise fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see. What you see is what you pay. Period. 2 taps and it's done. No stress, no hidden fees, just great seats in minutes. And that's what makes it so easy to decide last minute to hit up a game. And I got my eye on picking up some tickets through Game Time when Chicago takes on Milwaukee on opening day. But also, I'm going to be looking at it for the rest of that series as I don't have to worry about all those fees other places may charge. The price I see will be the price I pay. It's not going to be some hidden, price that's just going to all of a sudden dramatically go up once I hit checkout because there's all those hidden fees. Nope, I'm going to know what I'm going to pay right there in the app. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And baseball is back, and you can lock in by joining the Everydayer Club, which gets you ad-free episodes and access to our group chat on Discord. And for the next week or so, you can use code SPRING for a free month. Go to LockedOnWhiteSox.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So Eloy Jimenez is trying to make it back to the big leagues after almost considering retiring, according to a recent feature written on him in sportsnet.com, Sportsnet being one of the major sports broadcast channels in Canada. It's TSN and Sportsnet, basically. Sportsnet is more like, I would say, the Fox Sports of Canada, sports television programming. I spent a little bit of time in Toronto, back in some past career life. And I remember it's like TSN and then Sportsnet. But Eloy's off to a hot start. And I saw a headline from a former website I used to run that said, White Sox fans might cringe at slugging disappointments Blue Jays comeback bid. Should have been disappointment slugger, but I'm not going to, harp back on a site that I no longer contribute to. But if you do cringe, then remember his career crumbling was mostly his fault. I mean, there was all that speculation, all those rumors about how he just didn't keep himself in shape. Now, to be fair, some of it was maybe his body biologically couldn't not handle the rigors of a 162-game season. I mean, he did have an Achilles injury last year when he was with the Rays. So the injury problems followed him once he left the White Sox. And after briefly playing well for like a week for the Orioles, he became a major disappointment to the point where Baltimore said, see ya. And then he tried to latch on with the Rays. And they were like, okay, you're injury prone. You're not really putting the ball in the air. Time to move on. I mean, the guy's health maladies got so bad that it almost had him considering retirement. This is what he relayed to Sportsnet Arden Zwelling. This is, I just want to share you some snippets here. Among the issues, repeated strained hamstrings, an appendectomy, an adductor strain, an ulnar nerve issue, and a high ankle sprain. Jimenez remained productive when on the field, posting 116 WRC plus from 2021 through 2023, and his underlying indicators, bat speed, contact quality, and strikeout rate, never wavered. But he was seldom healthy for long enough to fully realize that potential. The White Sox ultimately cut bait at the trade deadline in 2024, the final year of that pre-debut deal, shipping Jimenez in cash to the Orioles for an overage relief prospect. Months later, he was a free agent. That's when Jimenez began giving serious consideration to a thought that rattled around in his brain throughout 2024, retirement. He'd been a top prospect. He made money. He demonstrated what he could do at the highest level. He'd been through so many rehabs, so many setbacks. Maybe his body was telling him he'd gone as far as he could. Quote, I was in a battle with my head because of the injuries. It was like, I need to be healthy first, then try to prove myself. But it was really hard. You know what? You know that you can do it, but your body is not responding to what you know you can do, Jimenez says. I was really, really close to retiring, end quote. Jimenez continued discussing the idea with his wife, Ashley, and close friends throughout 2025, particularly when he missed a month due to Achilles tendonitis, as he bounced between minor league deals with Tampa and the Blue Jays, who signed him in late August to get a closer look at his swing and physical markers. After a half dozen AAA games with the Buffalo Bisons down the stretch, Jimenez became a free agent again and figured it was the end of the line. But following a heart-to-heart with longtime mentor Amoris Nina, the Dominican trainer who first recruited Jimenez to his El Toro Academy as a teenager, a decision was made. The 29-year-old was too young and too talented to walk away. He joined Lindam's Toros del Este early in the Dominican Winter League season to give it one last shot, open to whatever outcome was in store. Less than 3 months later, he was named Lindam's round-robin MVP, the equivalent of the Championship Series MVP Guerrero won last fall, after setting a league record with 10 doubles in the 18-game phase. His body held up, his bat produced, he played first base regularly. Quote, that's when I said, oh, this is me now. I got back to the old me, Jimenez says. It's been a long time since I've had that sensation and confidence, end quote. And if he gets a second act, good for him. But he will still go down as the biggest disappointment, at least talent-wise, in White Sox history because he couldn't stay healthy. And then he just stopped putting the ball in the air. Now, Ronaldo Lopez figuring out how to be an all-star starter with another team, that can make you cringe because you got to wonder, what did the Sox miss? Other players going on to be the best versions of themselves after escaping 35th in Shields. Also cringeworthy. But a guy who was supposed to help win titles. He was supposed to be part of that major core. He's supposed to be a superstar. And then he turns out to be part of the reason the team craters to this horrible state. If he ends up being something again, well, it just means he realized he had to start working to stay in the show. Well, that wraps up this extra edition of Locked On White Sox. I'll be back tomorrow with a Fan Poll Friday segment. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or wherever you get your audio podcasts, as this show is available on places such as Apple or Spotify. You can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. You can also follow the show on X, formerly Twitter, at Locked On Sox. You can also follow me at Todd J. Dub. You can also find the show on TikTok at Locked On White Sox. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On White Sox ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and so much more. Head to LockedOnWhiteSox.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On Fantasy Baseball as you gear up for the MLB season. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later.